Let me tell you something. The night my son tried to throw an $8,000 restaurant bill on my lap, acting like I was his personal ATM, I felt something inside me snap. Quietly, slow, like a storm warming up behind my ribs. And they had no clue that I'd been waiting for a moment just like this. Honey, they always say trouble don't shout before it walks into your life. Nah, it tiptoes. That night started real soft. My son, Caleb, called me early in the morning with that sweet boy voice he only uses when he wants something. "Ma," he said, "let's all go out for a quiet dinner tonight. Just us. Nothing fancy. Now listen, Caleb ain't spoken to me sweet like that in months. His wife, Tiffany, had been whispering in his ear so long, I'm surprised he still remembered his own thoughts. But I said yes. Why? 'Cause sometimes a mama wants to pretend her child still got a heart that remembers where it came from. So I put on my warmest coat, spray on a little lavender, just enough to feel human, and waited by the door like I used to when Caleb was a kid running late from school. They pulled up 20 minutes late, of course. Tiffany didn't even roll her window down. She just wiggled her fingers like she was shooing a cat toward the car. I should have known then. But foolish hope makes old bones softer sometimes. We reached the restaurant, one of those fancy glass everywhere, building stopped, dining room patio, and one of those all-black glass parties. But fancy parties in a fancy restaurant. Human. Friends. I'm grateful. And you miss me too. As we all grow older, we make bad decisions. Sometimes we simply have to sit back and watch. It's short. You've seen plenty of times. Things have gone badly wrong. We need people to know. They are kids who hold on to the past. It's not great, Dad, but foolish hope makes old bones softer. Sometimes. We reached the restaurant, one of those fancy glass everywhere, buildings stopped, dining room patio, and one of those old black glass parties. But foolish forks cost more than my shoes type of places. And every single one was filled with Tiffany's relatives, loud, laughing, already ordering like the menu was free. Her uncle holding a champagne flute, her cousins passing steaks around like samples at Costco. One man, Lord help me, had a lobster the size of a toddler sitting on his plate. Tiffany waved at them all like a celebrity arriving at an award show. "Oh," she giggled, "I forgot to tell you, Grandma Helen." She always called me that fake cute name, Helen. My name is Martha, and she knows it. "We told my family to join. Isn't it fun?" Fun. Sugar, nothing fun comes with 20 plates of imported beef. The waiter kept coming back writing down orders I didn't even understand. Wagyu, truffle risotto, gold leaf tiramisu. Lord have mercy, why was dessert wearing jewelry? I sat there quiet, watching the bill climb higher than my blood pressure. Tiffany kept toasting, flirting with the attention. Caleb, bless his confused little soul, tried to act like this was normal. He just stared at his phone the whole time, like he didn't want to look me in the eye. 2 hours later, the table looked like a battlefield. Empty champagne bottles, half-eaten steaks, plates stacked like a Jenga tower. Finally, the waiter placed that check in a neat little leather folder and set it right in front of Tiffany. She stared at it. Then she grinned at Caleb. Then, oh honey, she slid that bill across the table, right to me. Caleb didn't even look ashamed. He just pushed his chair back, grabbed his keys, and said, "Mom, can you handle this? We'll wait in the car." Just like that, 20 people who ate like kings, an $8,000 bill, and my own flesh and blood walking off like I was disposable. I sat there, still, quiet, real quiet. The kind of quiet that scares even the angels. The relatives all pretended not to see. Some even got up and left, mumbling thanks, like I was their waitress. I opened that check, $8,042.73. Tiffany shouted across the restaurant, "Hurry up, Grandma Helen! It's cold outside!" My hand didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. I didn't cry. I just reached into my bag, slow as Sunday morning. It was time. Time to stop being the woman they could stomp on. Time to show 'em who they were messin' with. And baby, right then, I remembered the thing Caleb and Tiffany always forget. I may walk slow, I may speak soft, but I ain't helpless. Not even close. As I stood up from that table, holding that leather billfold, a hush washed over me, 'cause the move I was about to make was gonna flip their whole world upside down. I walked out of that restaurant like a ghost in my own life, clutching that check folder tighter than I'd ever held onto anything. My hands didn't tremble, but my heart, oh sugar, my heart was burning like a furnace. Every step felt heavy, but it was a different kind of heavy. The kind that comes when you finally decided you won't be pushed around no more. I didn't look back at Caleb or Tiffany. I didn't need to. Their faces were already etched into my memory, frozen in that smug little grin, like they thought I'd crumble. I had spent decades letting people walk all over me, letting sons and husbands and neighbors treat me like I was invisible. Not tonight. Tonight, I'd feel my own weight for the first time in years. I got to my car, slid in and sat there for a long moment. The cold leather seats pressed against me, and I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. $8,000. $8,000 of my dignity. And no one else was going to hand it back to me. I had to take it. Every penny was mine. Every single one. The ride home was quiet. I didn't turn the radio on. I didn't call a friend. I just let the night and the city lights move around me like ghosts, reminding me that I was alive and still capable of standing on my own 2 feet. When I got home, I placed that check folder on the kitchen counter and stared at it like it was a trophy. Not a trophy for wealth, mind you, but a trophy for survival. For finally saying no without apologizing. I thought about calling Caleb. Instead, I pulled out my little notebook, the one I kept for years tucked away under the counter. I opened it and started scribbling. Not numbers, not recipes, not little lists of errands, but thoughts. Thoughts that had been trapped inside me like caged birds. I am not invisible. I am not weak. I am not theirs to use. The words tasted sweet, like honey on my tongue after a long winter. And with each line I wrote, I felt something inside me stretch and grow, like a vine finally finding sunlight. The next morning, I didn't call Caleb. I didn't even pick up when Tiffany's number flashed on my phone. Nah, I let it ring. Let it ring, baby. Let it echo in the emptiness they created. I went about my day like I always did. Slow, deliberate, cautious, but with a new edge. I cleaned the apartment with care, made myself a strong cup of coffee, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel guilty. I felt alive. 2 days later, the knock came. A soft, hesitant knock. My first instinct was to ignore it. Let whoever it was wander off. But something told me to open it. And there she stood, Paula, a distant cousin of Tiffany's, looking like a kid caught in the middle of her own mess. Dark hair, tired eyes, and a nervous energy that made me feel something I hadn't felt in a while. Curiosity. "Mrs. Martha?" she asked. Her voice shook a little. "It's Paula. I need to talk to you." I blinked. Hesitation bubbled up, but curiosity won. I stepped aside and let her in. She followed me to the living room, fidgeting with the strap of her bag, her eyes not quite meeting mine. I was at that dinner," she began, voice low, "and I want to apologize." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you do, huh?" My voice wasn't harsh, but it carried weight. Years of being walked on had taught me how to put gravity into a sentence. Paula swallowed. "I didn't know what Tiffany and Caleb were planning. None of us did. They told everyone it was a family dinner, that everything was already arranged. When I saw what happened, when I saw you left with the bill, I felt horrible, and I want to make it right." She reached into her bag and pulled out a crisp envelope. My hands trembled slightly as I took it. Inside, neat stacks of bills. $350. Not the full amount, honey, but enough to mean she cared. Tears pricked my eyes, and I caught myself. Not for her money, but for the recognition. For the fact that someone saw the injustice, and it mattered to them. "Thank you, Paula," I whispered. And I meant it. She smiled faintly. "What you did, distancing yourself from them, that was brave. More people in our family should do the same." I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. Not everyone was lost. Not everyone was like Caleb and Tiffany. Some people still had hearts, even in that mess of a family. The weeks that followed were strange. I felt strong, standing taller than I had in years. But I also felt moments of weakness, the kind that makes your chest ache. Temptation to call Caleb. Temptation to forgive. Temptation to go back to the illusion of family. But every time it hit me, I remembered that night. The way they laughed, the way they abandoned me, the way Tiffany's smirk had burned into my brain. That memory became armor. That memory became fuel. And I refused to fall into the same trap again. I started rebuilding. Small steps first. I found a part-time job taking care of a sweet old lady, Mrs. Lillian, 3 times a week. Simple work, but it made me feel useful. I started baking again, cookies, flans, cakes, and sold them to neighbors. Every penny I earned reminded me I could stand on my own. By the time a month rolled around, I was different. Not just older, not just wiser. Different, stronger, fierce. I realized life didn't have to revolve around family titles. Love didn't have to mean sacrifice of self. Respect didn't have to be begged for. It had to be demanded. And sugar, the best part, I knew I'd never be walked over again. Not by Caleb, not by Tiffany, not by anyone. I had learned that my dignity was non-negotiable. And from that moment on, every day I woke up, I promised myself, I choose me. I'd been avoiding the phone for weeks, letting it ring into silence, letting the world move without me answering to anyone. But some mornings, I swear, it felt like the universe itself was testing me. That Tuesday was one of those mornings. I was baking a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies, the smell filling my little kitchen, when the doorbell rang. Sharp, insistent. My heart did a little jump. I peeked through the peephole, and there he was. Anthony, my own son, looking different, thinner, tired, like life had been chewing him up and spit him out. His shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed with regret, phone dangling uselessly in his hand. I felt something stir inside me. Old habits, old love. But I didn't move, didn't open the door yet. I grabbed my cardigan and stepped out slowly, raising my voice just enough for him to hear. Yeah? He looked up, startled, like he hadn't expected a wall instead of an open door. Mom! His voice cracked. That voice I used to know, soft and desperate, now rough around the edges. I've been looking for you for months. I folded my arms. You found me. My tone was calm, almost cold. That coldness was my armor now. He hesitated, shifting his weight, then spoke again. I need to talk to you. Please. I glanced over at Rose, who had been standing quietly behind me. Her eyes gentle but watchful. She gave me a slight nod, like saying it's okay to hear him out. I inhaled deep, that familiar city air burning my lungs, and said, Talk, but I don't need a show. Anthony's eyes darted to Rose, awkward and defensive. Alone? He asked. I shook my head. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my friend. I don't do solo guilt trips anymore. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, a gesture I knew all too well. Guilt and shame written plain on his face. Heather and we broke up. She left me a month ago. I felt a strange twist in my chest, something like pity at first, but it was fleeting. This wasn't about her. It was about him, about the choices he'd made. I nodded, not with sympathy, just acknowledgement. I'm sorry to hear that, I said quietly. Not with sugar, not with fake comfort, just truth. Anthony's head drooped. Lips trembling. You were right about her, about everything, and you come to tell me now? His voice was tight, broken. Yeah, I come to tell you I was right, I replied evenly, after everything that happened, and I still am. Tears started welling in his eyes. Real tears this time, not the ones he used to fake when he wanted something. I'm sorry, Mom. I've been living with that guilt every day. I know I was wrong. I studied him. Really studied him. That familiar face, grown older, worn thinner, haunted by mistakes. Part of me wanted to reach out. Part of me wanted to hug him and whisper, "It's okay." But the other part, the part that had been reborn in the months since that night, stood firm. Anthony, I said, my voice steady, I appreciate your apology, but an apology doesn't erase $8,000. It doesn't erase months of manipulation. It doesn't erase leaving me alone in that restaurant, knowing I couldn't pay the bill. He flinched, shoulders hunching. I know, Mom, I know, and I don't expect forgiveness now. I wanted you to know. Good, I said, and I meant it. I hope that guilt changes you. I hope you never treat anyone like that again. I hope it sinks deep enough that it makes you a better person. He swallowed hard, step by step, moving closer, like he was testing the air around him before touching it. Can we try again? Start from zero? I took a step back. My heart thumped, not with fear, not with anger, but with power. No, Anthony, we cannot. I am not that woman anymore. I am not the one who says yes to everything. I am not the one who lets herself be trampled to keep the peace. That woman died the night in that restaurant. He froze. But I'm your son, he said softly, voice breaking. I'm always your son. I felt tears well up, threatening to spill, but I blinked them back. Yes, you will always be my son, and I will always love you. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Love doesn't mean sacrificing myself until I'm empty. Love doesn't mean losing my dignity. And if you cannot love me without hurting me, then we stay apart. Anthony stood there, defeated, silent. The fight had left him. The excuses had left him. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, he nodded slowly. I understand, he whispered, almost too soft to hear. I hope someday you can forgive me. And then he left. I watched him walk away, each step heavy, shoulders slumped. Rose squeezed my hand, steady and strong. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I am okay. And it was true. Not painless, but different. Not broken, but whole. Not trapped, but free. That night, I sat alone in front of my mirror. The face looking back at me was lined, yes, gray in places, and marked by life. But there was also something else. Strength, pride, dignity. A woman who had been tested and survived, who now had a choice in every step she took. I pulled out my notebook and wrote again. I do not owe my happiness to anyone. I do not owe my dignity to anyone. I am my own person, and that is enough. Closing it, I felt a calm settle over me, heavier than fear, heavier than regret, heavier than anything I had felt in decades. Tomorrow, I promised myself, I would continue building this life. A life where I chose the people in it. A life where I no longer bowed to fear or guilt. A life where I, finally at 67, put myself first. The mornings after that confrontation with Anthony were quiet, almost unnervingly so. I woke up without the usual knot in my stomach, the dread that came with the phone ringing or a knock at the door. For once, I felt free. Real freedom, the kind that doesn't just sip in your chest, but spreads to your bones, makes your spine stand a little taller. I started small. Baking cookies, pies, and cakes wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was survival, but survival on my own terms. I set up a little corner in the kitchen labeled Olivia's Treats and began selling to neighbors, friends of friends, even folks I barely knew. Word got around fast. People loved them. And slowly, month by month, I built up a little nest egg. Enough to pay bills, enough to breathe without asking anyone for a cent. But money wasn't the only thing I needed to rebuild. I needed people I could trust, people who valued me, not what I could do for them. Rose had been a rock, of course, but she wasn't enough to fill the void of family that had been ripped away. That's when she mentioned the community group for older women, something she'd promised me, but I had resisted. I don't belong there, I said that first Wednesday. I don't want to sit around telling stories about pain. Rose just smiled, patience in her eyes. You're not the only one feeling that way, Olivia, and you might be surprised what you find. I went, like I went to the doctor for a shot I didn't want to take. Reluctantly, arms crossed, pride up high, thinking I was too tough to need them. And yet, when I walked in, the room smelled faintly of coffee and cinnamon, and women of all shapes and sizes were laughing and talking in a way that didn't feel fake or forced. They were real, raw, strong. One woman, Linda, maybe 70, caught my eye. She had this twinkle, like she'd survived a hurricane and still had her sense of humor intact. She waved me over, and before I could say no, I was seated, tea in hand. Stories poured out, some sad, some funny, some downright terrifying. But the key was, everyone survived. Everyone had a piece of life that tried to crush them, but they'd fought back. It hit me hard. I wasn't alone. I hadn't failed. I had just been dealt a raw hand, and then came the real challenge. Trust. Not with strangers, but with myself. I had to stop checking the phone every 5 minutes, stop waiting for a call from Anthony or Heather, stop expecting betrayal around every corner. One afternoon, Paula came by. Heather's cousin, the one who had handed me the envelope months ago. She was different now, lighter, freer. "You look happy," she said, her eyes scanning my kitchen. I smiled, genuinely. "Yeah, I am." "You've changed," she said, nodding. "You're fierce now. Scary fierce, honestly." I laughed, a real laugh, not the kind that hides pain. I had to be. "Took me long enough, huh?" She hesitated, then said something that caught me off guard. "You should teach some of us how to do this. How to stop giving pieces of yourself away to people who don't deserve it." And I realized she was right. I could. I wanted to. Not just bake, not just survive, but help other women find their backbone, their voice. Meanwhile, my little business grew. I wasn't rich, not by any stretch, but I didn't care. I made enough to pay bills, enjoy a little freedom, and invest in myself. I took a few classes online, finance basics, social media marketing, baking techniques I hadn't dared try when Anthony was young, and my time wasn't my own. Each little victory felt enormous. Then came the day I saw Anthony again. I was walking in the park with my shopping bag full of fresh-baked muffins when I spotted him on a bench, hunched over his phone. Same as before, slimmer, wearier, defeat in his posture. I felt a flicker of emotion, not anger, not even resentment, just observation. Rose noticed him too, her hand brushing mine. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "Yeah, I do." He looked up, saw me, and froze. For a moment, it was like nothing had changed, like we were trapped in that old loop, that old pattern. But then he got up, slowly, and started toward us. "Mom," he said, voice breaking, carrying months of regret. I need to talk." I looked at Rose, then back at him. "Talk, but in front of us. No games." He nodded, hesitant. "Heather, she's gone. I messed up. I know that now." I felt a pang, but it wasn't the same as before. This time, I stood firm. And I want to make things right. With you. I know I can't erase the past, but I want a chance." I took a deep breath, heart steady, mind sharp. "Anthony, the chance isn't mine to give. I've already built a life that doesn't need permission from anyone. You need to earn your own redemption. Not with me, not with Heather. With yourself. He lowered his gaze, understanding settling in like the first cold of winter. I get it. Just remember this, I said firmly, my voice calm but unwavering. You can't take what doesn't belong to you. You can't demand respect or love. You earn it, one choice at a time. And if you keep screwing up, someone else will be the victim. Don't let it be you again, Anthony. He nodded, silent, then walked away, shoulders still heavy, but maybe lighter than before. Rose and I watched him go, and I felt a strange pride, not in him, but in me. That night, I sat with my notebook again. I wrote down my progress, my triumphs, my little victories. I am building a life that is mine. I choose the people, the moments, the happiness. I am enough. For the first time in decades, I felt it fully. The thrill of freedom, the sweetness of independence, the power of reclaiming life from those who tried to steal it. And I knew deep in my bones, this was only the beginning. ... By the time summer rolled around, Olivia's life had changed in ways she hadn't dared imagine months ago. The mornings were hers now. She no longer woke to the gnawing anxiety that had haunted her for decades. Instead, she woke to the smell of fresh coffee and the sweet aroma of cinnamon from her kitchen, where muffins, cakes, and cookies lined the counter like little victories. Business was growing slowly, but steadily. Neighborhood orders had turned into small catering requests, and occasionally, a local cafe asked if she could supply desserts. Olivia had never thought she'd be excited about numbers and spreadsheets, but balancing the costs, the earnings, and planning weekly deliveries gave her a strange thrill. She liked being in control. For the first time, she didn't need to ask anyone for permission or validation. It wasn't all easy, though. Some days, doubt crept in. Some mornings she caught herself imagining calling Anthony, or imagining Heather apologizing, or thinking about what might have been if she hadn't said no that night in the restaurant. The memories were sharp, like paper cuts that refused to heal. But Olivia had learned a crucial truth. Remembering didn't mean reliving. Feeling didn't mean yielding. Her friends at the community center became a lifeline. Wednesdays were sacred. She found herself listening. One Wednesday, after a long session of sharing stories, Paula arrived at the center unexpectedly. She had that hesitant look Olivia remembered from the first time they met, but this time it was replaced by warmth and determination. I wanted to show you something, Paula said, extending a small envelope. Olivia hesitated, but she took it. Inside were a few letters from family members, relatives who had finally recognized Heather's manipulations and cut ties. For the first time, Olivia felt a sense of closure. The family that had once caused her pain was no longer a looming shadow over her life. It's freeing, Olivia admitted softly, to know that they can't touch me anymore. Paula nodded. And you've inspired some of us too. We're starting to see that saying no isn't rude. It's survival. You taught us that. The day faded into evening, and Olivia returned home with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She unpacked her baking supplies, humming softly when the phone rang. She froze. Unknown number. But she didn't panic. She hesitated, then let it ring out. The phone fell silent. No one was coming to take advantage of her today. She had boundaries now. A week later, while delivering an order to a small cafe downtown, Olivia ran into a young woman staring at the display case. She looked nervous, almost shy. Olivia smiled warmly. "Can I help you?" The woman hesitated. I heard about your baking. I want to learn. Can you teach me?" Olivia's heart lifted. Teaching! She hadn't thought about it, but sharing her skills felt like another way of reclaiming her life. "Of course," she said, "but you'll have to start small." And so began a new chapter. Olivia spent mornings teaching, afternoons baking, and evenings documenting her journey in her notebook. She wrote about pain, yes, but also growth. She wrote about independence, dignity, and the thrill of building something solely for herself. Every word was a reminder that her life belonged to her alone. Then, one afternoon, Rose dropped by with news that shook Olivia's calm routine. "Anthony's been asking around," she said, her brow furrowed. "He wants to know if you'd consider meeting to talk." Olivia paused, feeling a flicker of old tension. But she didn't panic. She considered it for a long moment, then shook her head firmly. "No, not now. Maybe never. I've built a life without waiting for him. I'm not going to dismantle that." Rose nodded approvingly. "Good. You don't need that chaos back. Not ever." Still, part of Olivia wondered about forgiveness. Could she forgive Anthony someday? Maybe. But forgiveness didn't mean returning to the past. It didn't mean letting him hurt her again. It meant acknowledging what happened, feeling the pain, and choosing peace over revenge. Weeks passed, and Olivia's confidence grew. She started volunteering at the community center outside of Wednesday meetings, helping women with job applications, teaching them basic financial skills, and sharing her own story. Every time someone smiled at her, thanked her, or succeeded because of her guidance, Olivia felt a surge of pride. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. One particularly busy day, after delivering a large batch of pastries, Olivia returned home exhausted but exhilarated. She collapsed on her couch, flipping open her notebook. There she wrote, "I am not defined by others' mistakes. I am defined by my choices. I choose strength. I choose dignity." And that night, as she looked into the mirror before bed, she saw a woman transformed. Her wrinkles, her gray hairs, her years of trials, they were all there. But so was something new. Fire, determination, a spark that couldn't be extinguished. Olivia smiled softly at her reflection. She had survived betrayal, abandonment, and manipulation. But she had not only survived, she had grown. And for the first time in decades, she felt truly whole. The path ahead wasn't perfect. There would still be challenges, moments of doubt, and days when the weight of the past threatened to creep back in. But Olivia knew something, now that she hadn't known before. She had the power to choose her battles, her companions, her life. And no one, not Heather, not Anthony, not anyone else, could take that away from her. For the first time, Olivia felt the deep, unshakable truth. She was enough. She always had been. And finally, she had claimed the life that was hers. no longer living in the shadow of others' mistakes, but standing tall in her own world. By late summer, Olivia's life had settled into a rhythm she had never known before. Baking in the mornings, teaching in the afternoons, community center meetings on Wednesdays, and quiet evenings with her notebook and a cup of chamomile tea. She felt a sense of freedom, a freedom that came from knowing she could rely only on herself, and that was enough. But life, as Olivia had learned, had a way of testing even the strongest resolve. It began subtly. A phone call from the bank, asking about her credit card activity. Then, a few days later, an anonymous letter slid under her door. No return address, no signature. Just words typed in all caps. You can't escape what's owed to you. You belong to us. Olivia's heart raced, a familiar cold fear creeping up her spine. She had faced manipulative family before, but this felt different. There was no face she could confront, no conversation she could end. It was just a shadow lurking in her life, threatening to undo the stability she had fought so hard to build. She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was a prank, a mistake, or someone's cruel joke. But when another letter arrived, this time more direct. Stop thinking you're better than us. You'll pay. She could no longer ignore it. Olivia's hands shook as she held the envelope. The independence she had painstakingly built now seemed fragile, like glass teetering on a shelf. Rose noticed immediately when Olivia came to the center that Wednesday, pale and tense. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etched in her voice. Olivia handed her the letter, her fingers trembling. Rose read it carefully, her expression hardening. "This isn't just a letter, Olivia. Someone is trying to scare you, but they don't get to control you. Not now. Not ever." Olivia wanted to believe her friend, but the fear lingered. She began double-checking her locks, installing extra security cameras, and even carrying her phone everywhere. She avoided going out alone, her freedom suddenly feeling like a fragile mask over a hidden panic. Then came the day she saw him. Not Anthony. She wasn't ready for him yet. But a tall man in his 40s, standing across the street from her apartment, watching. He didn't move when she noticed him, just stared. Olivia's chest tightened. Her first instinct was to run, but she didn't. She couldn't let fear dictate her life. She called Rose immediately. Within minutes, Rose was at her side, comforting her, guiding her to safety. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the last few months. How far she had come, how much she had learned, and yet how vulnerable she still was. But she realized something crucial. Strength wasn't the absence of fear. Strength was facing fear head-on, refusing to let it define you. The next morning, Olivia decided to take control. She contacted the police and filed a report about the letters and the man who had been watching her. She called her bank to ensure her accounts were secure. She even reached out to Paula, who promised to keep an eye out and lend support if needed. Olivia felt the first flicker of calm in days. Action, she realized, was the antidote to terror. Even with new measures, the anxiety lingered. But Olivia refused to retreat completely from her life. She continued baking, teaching, and volunteering. She told herself every day, "I will not let them take my life away from me." Then came a surprising turn. One afternoon, While delivering a large order of pastries to a small cafe downtown, she bumped into an older man struggling with a stack of grocery bags. She helped him, and he smiled warmly. "Thank you, young lady," he said. "I'm Harold. I run the community center's seniors program. You seem remarkable. Would you ever consider volunteering there?" Olivia hesitated. She had her plate full. But something about Harold's kind eyes, his genuine tone, drew her in. She agreed. That evening, she walked into the center's senior program for the first time. And just like that, a new chapter began. A chapter where she helped others while rebuilding her own confidence. The seniors adored her. They laughed at her jokes, learned eagerly from her baking tips, and shared stories of their own past struggles. Olivia found herself immersed in their lives, feeling useful and appreciated. More importantly, she felt alive in a way she hadn't in decades. The fear that had tried to claw back her independence began to fade, replaced with purpose. But life, of course, never offers peace without challenge. One Wednesday, Paula came running into the center, panic on her face. "Olivia, you need to hear this," she said, clutching a letter. Olivia's heart sank. It was from Heather. Written in Heather's sharp, familiar handwriting, it read, "You think you've won? You think you're free? Don't forget, I can ruin everything you've built. Remember what you owe me." Olivia felt the familiar surge of anger, but also a strange sense of clarity. Heather's attempts to intimidate her had lost their power. She had survived betrayal, manipulation, and abandonment. She had rebuilt her life from the ground up, and no words, no threats, could take that away. Paula watched Olivia, expecting fear or tears. But Olivia didn't falter. "She's not going to control me," Olivia said, voice steady. "Not ever. She's lost her place in my life. I'm done reacting to her." That evening, Olivia wrote in her notebook, long and carefully, "I am not afraid of ghosts from the past. I am alive in the present. I am free." By the time Olivia went to bed that night, exhaustion overtook her, but so did pride. She had faced fear, intimidation, and even a sense of looming danger. And yet she had remained unbroken. She had taken the lessons from her past, the strength from her friends, and the love she had for herself, and turned them into armor. For the first time, she realized that true independence wasn't just about living alone or managing money. It was about emotional resilience, about facing the storms life threw at her and choosing herself anyway. Olivia knew that challenges would come again, as life always tested the strong. But she also knew that she was ready. And in that quiet apartment, as the city lights flickered outside her window, Olivia finally felt what she had longed for years. Not just freedom, not just independence, but unshakable peace within herself. By the time the leaves began to turn in early autumn, Olivia felt a new sense of calm in her life. The lingering fear from Heather's letters had faded into a dull echo she barely noticed. Baking orders were consistent. Her work at the senior program kept her engaged, and her weekly women's group meetings gave her comfort and strength. Olivia had built a life that was hers, unshaken by the manipulation and betrayal that had once threatened to destroy her. But life, as she was learning, had a way of presenting choices that tested more than just survival. It tested the heart. It started with a phone call from Paula one Thursday morning. "Olivia, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice hesitant. Olivia, cautious but curious, asked her to explain. Paula took a deep breath. "Heather, she's in trouble, really bad trouble, and she's asking for help." Olivia froze, gripping the phone tightly. Heather asking for help? After everything she had done? After the betrayal? The manipulation? The cruelty? A part of Olivia wanted to hang up immediately, to close the door forever on any connection to that toxic family. But another part, one she barely recognized, felt a flicker of something unexpected. Curiosity. "What kind of trouble?" Olivia asked cautiously. Paula explained that Heather had gotten involved in a scheme with some dangerous people. She had made promises she couldn't keep, borrowed money she couldn't repay, and now she was at risk of serious consequences. "I know you don't want anything to do with her," Paula said gently. "But she asked me to reach out to you because she trusts you more than anyone else in the family." Olivia's mind raced. She thought about her months of rebuilding, her hard-won independence, the dignity she had reclaimed, the life she had created. Could she afford to open that door again? Even a crack? Could she risk the chaos Heather might bring into her life once more? She put the phone down and stared out the window, thinking of the apartment she had made her sanctuary. She thought of Rose, who had become more than a friend. She was family now. She thought of the seniors at the community center, whose laughter and warmth filled her days. She thought of herself, standing taller and stronger than she had in decades. And then she remembered the woman in the mirror, the woman who had survived betrayal, manipulation, and abandonment, and come out whole. That woman did not make decisions out of fear or guilt. That woman made choices with clarity and strength. Olivia picked up the phone again. "Paula, tell her I'll think about it," she said slowly. "But she has to understand something. This is the last time. If she brings chaos into my life again, there will be no second chance." Paula's relief was evident over the line. "I'll tell her, Olivia. I promise." For the next few days, Olivia wrestled with her feelings. Part of her wanted to shut Heather out completely, to protect the life she had worked so hard to build. But another part, a quieter part, wondered if helping Heather might also be a test of her own strength. Could she help someone who had wronged her without losing herself in the process? Could she show compassion without sacrificing boundaries? Finally, one crisp Saturday morning, Olivia made her decision. She called Paula and asked for Heather's address. She told herself it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about power. She was no longer the woman who allowed herself to be hurt repeatedly. She was going to help on her terms, in her way, and only to the extent that didn't compromise her hard-won independence. When she arrived at Heather's apartment, she was struck by the sight of the woman she had once feared, now looking vulnerable and desperate. Heather's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. "Olivia, you came," she whispered. Olivia crossed her arms, holding herself steady. "I didn't come because I trust you. I came because I have limits, and right now, I choose to test those limits." Heather's voice trembled. I messed up everything." I didn't know who else to turn to. Please, I need your help. Olivia took a deep breath. She could see the fear in Heather's eyes, the same fear she had once known herself. Fear of consequences, fear of being abandoned, fear of facing the truth. But this time, she would not allow herself to be manipulated. She would help only if it was safe and controlled. Here's the deal, Olivia said firmly. I will help you, but on my terms. You follow my instructions exactly. No lies, no manipulation. And the moment you cross a line, I walk away. Understood? Heather nodded quickly, desperation etched into her features. Yes, I understand. Over the next week, Olivia guided Heather through steps to resolve her problems. She helped her make arrangements with the people she owed, contacted legal advisors, and ensured Heather stayed safe from the dangerous situation she had created. Every step, Olivia maintained control, never allowing herself to be pulled back into Heather's chaos. Through it all, Olivia discovered something unexpected. Helping Heather, without being hurt, without sacrificing herself, was empowering. It reminded her of the strength she had cultivated, the boundaries she had learned to enforce, and the clarity she now possessed. By the end of the week, Heather's situation had stabilized. She was tired, humiliated, and grateful, but she had learned the hard way that her actions had consequences. Olivia left Heather's apartment, feeling a sense of satisfaction she had never experienced in her life. She had faced the past, confronted it, and emerged even stronger. That night, Olivia sat at her kitchen table, writing in her notebook, I am strong. I am wise. I am in control. Helping others does not weaken me. It strengthens my boundaries and proves my resilience. For the first time, she realized that the real test of her strength was not just surviving betrayal or reclaiming independence. It was maintaining herself while extending compassion to others, even those who had hurt her. She had learned that helping someone in need didn't mean giving up her power. It meant wielding it wisely. And as Olivia closed her notebook, she felt a sense of peace that was deeper than anything she had known. She was not just surviving anymore. She was thriving. Winter arrived quietly, dusting the city in frost, but inside Olivia's apartment, there was a warmth she had never felt before. It wasn't the heat of the radiator or the glow of the lamps. It was a glow that came from her own heart, from the life she had fought to reclaim. The past year had been a whirlwind. She had faced betrayal, abandonment, and the cold indifference of family members who should have cared for her. She had been left alone to pay bills she hadn't incurred, manipulated by people who claimed to love her. But through it all, Olivia had learned a lesson more valuable than any inheritance or favor. She could survive and thrive on her own. Her mornings were peaceful now. She woke early, brewed her coffee, and sat by the window to watch the city wake. She baked for neighbors, visited the seniors' center, and spent hours with her notebook, writing reflections, goals, and dreams. But the most important part of her routine was the small ritual of looking in the mirror each morning and seeing the woman she had become. Not the frightened, accommodating woman she had once been, but someone strong, resilient, and unapologetically herself. One afternoon, Rose called. Olivia, do you want to come to the center for a little holiday gathering? Some of the ladies baked extra cookies and everyone wants to see you. Olivia smiled. Of course, I'll be there. When she arrived, the center was alive with laughter, the smell of cinnamon and pine filling the room. Women she had met months ago hugged her, sharing stories of progress, triumphs, and small victories. They celebrated each other's resilience, and in that room, Olivia felt the true meaning of chosen family. Paula was there too. She had brought a small gift for Olivia, a framed photo of the two of them, smiling together during that fateful week when Olivia had helped Heather. For remembering, Paula said softly, for remembering that good people exist and that boundaries don't make you cold, they make you strong. Olivia took the frame and held it to her chest. Thank you, she whispered. As the evening wore on, Olivia noticed a familiar face by the window. Anthony. She felt her chest tighten, a flicker of old emotion, but she steadied herself. He had reached out sporadically over the past months, but Olivia had maintained her boundaries, communicating only when necessary and always on her terms. Anthony approached slowly, clearly nervous. Mom, I didn't want to ruin your evening, he said, his voice quiet. I wanted to say thank you. Olivia arched an eyebrow, curious. Thank me? Yes, he said, running a hand through his hair. For not giving up on me completely. For teaching me, in your way, what it means to respect others. I've been learning, Mom. I've made mistakes I'll carry for a lifetime. But I'm trying to be better. Olivia studied him carefully. She felt no rush of old anger or resentment. She felt no need to rescue him. She simply observed the man her son was becoming, separate from the boy who had abandoned her. Anthony, I don't expect perfection, she said calmly. But I do expect honesty, responsibility, and respect. You're capable of all of that if you choose to be. The rest is your journey. He nodded, relief mixed with remorse in his eyes. I understand. I wanted you to know that I see you. I see the life you've built, the woman you've become, and I admire it. I admire you. Olivia's lips curved into a small smile. Thank you, Anthony. That means something. But don't mistake admiration for dependency. I am my own woman. I've spent a lifetime giving, bending, and compromising. And now, I give only when it aligns with my values. He looked at her, absorbing every word. There was no anger, no pleading, just understanding and acceptance. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that his mother's strength did not belong to him. It was her own. After he left, Olivia turned to Rose. Do you see, Rose? All of this, it's exactly what I needed. Not revenge, not control over them, not even their recognition. Just life. My life. Rose nodded, squeezing her hand. You've earned every bit of it, Olivia, and you deserve every moment of happiness you've built. That night, Olivia returned to her apartment, lit a candle, and sat by the window. Snowflakes fell gently outside, each one unique, fragile, yet enduring, just like the life she had reclaimed. She opened her notebook and wrote a final reflection. I have learned that life is not measured by the approval of others, nor by the love I am given unconditionally. Life is measured by the love I give myself, the boundaries I maintain, and the choices I make to protect my dignity. I am not defined by betrayal, manipulation, or abandonment. I am defined by resilience, by courage, and by the strength to choose myself every single day. Olivia closed the notebook and leaned back, a calm smile settling over her face. She felt whole, not because the past had changed, but because she had changed. She had learned that forgiveness was a gift she could give freely or not at all. That compassion was powerful, but only when it did not come at the cost of her dignity. That happiness was not owed to anyone, and it was never too late to claim it. For the first time in decades, Olivia truly felt free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, free from the weight of others' expectations. She was the protagonist of her own story, the author of her own life, and she had finally discovered the most important truth of all. She did not owe anyone her happiness, except herself. And for Olivia Marshall, that was enough.